All right, let's just get right into it. Welcome to today's explainer on The Wanderer's Compass. I'm Dr. Dude, and right now we are initiating a strict, zero-fluff system diagnostic for your functional self-governance. Listen, we're bypassing all that superficial self-help noise today. We are looking directly at the root source code of how you operate. So if your daily experience feels, I don't know, heavy, chaotic, or just constantly exhausting, we actually aren't going to talk about your feelings today. Instead, we are going to audit your architecture.
Now, I want you to hear this loud and clear. You are not fundamentally broken. You aren't necessarily depressed, and you certainly aren't uniquely flawed. What's actually happening to you is a critical system error. Your internal operating system is currently being DDoSed by a relentless, nonstop barrage of unmanaged inputs. Think about it, just like a server crashing because it's getting hit with way too many simultaneous requests, your cognitive and emotional bandwidth is literally being flooded. You're experiencing a systemic bottleneck. And your hardware? Well, it's simply locking up to protect itself.
So, let's formally diagnose this crash state. In our framework, we call this the diminished self. Mathematically, we represent this as a lowercase s being less than 3p. It's this incredibly powerless, highly reactive state where your energy is just trapped. It's oppressed by overlapping, unpartitioned external pressures. When you're operating in this state, your whole system is fragmented. And a lot of the time, this is rooted in toxic shame, basically unprepared exposure to vulnerability from your past that ended up writing some very buggy code into your subconscious. Because of that bug, you end up living through a false self, which is really just a defensive mask you built simply to cope with the processing load. You aren't actually acting in your life, you're just reacting. Look at the stark contrast between these two modes of operating. On one side, we have that localized, panicked render, the diminished self. It's trapped, it's brittle, and it is entirely at the mercy of its environment. But then, look at our target reboot state, the sovereign self. This is the state of true spiritual adulthood. In this state, you are actively governing the inputs rather than being crushed by them. And this is key. You don't magically eliminate the pressure. No, you master your response to it. You step up and become the highest authority of your own internal system.
Section 1. Partitioning the vectors.
The absolutely crucial point here is understanding the 3P part of our equation. What are they? Well, these are the 3 external pressure vectors that will absolutely DDoS your hard drive if you leave them unpartitioned. First up, P1. This is your personal vector. We're talking about relational obligations, social expectations, your somatic health, and internal emotional triggers. Second, P2 is your professional vector, your career metrics, status, contractual execution, financial stress, and that endless ping of digital notifications and institutional friction. And finally, P3 is your private vector. This is your repressed shadow data, your private dread, but also your deepest domestic boundaries and your sacred off-grid space.
To fix the crash, you have to execute these 3 distinct steps. 1. Isolate the pressure points. 2. Establish vector boundary firewalls. And 3. Stop the systemic bleed. Listen to me on this one, because the most critical error you can make, the one that leads directly to catastrophic systemic destructive events, is letting these domains cross-contaminate. If you let your professional pressures, your P2, bleed into your private sacred space, your P3, or if you let it dictate your personal health, your P1, you corrupt the entire operating system. The files literally overwrite each other. You absolutely must build hard firewalls between these vectors.
But look, we really need a major paradigm shift here before we move forward. Pressure itself is not your enemy. Actually, scratch that. Pressure is the literal engine of transcendence. Think about basic cosmology for a second. Gravity uses immense crushing pressure to force primal hydrogen, which is just potential energy, into nuclear fusion, right? That's what creates heavier matter and structured existence. Without that pressure, there is only a formless void. Psychological pressure and the friction of daily life, they are the exact gravitational forces required to bind your limitless, chaotic potential into actualized sovereign power. You just need to contain it properly.
Section 2. Executing the Metanoia override. All right, so metanoia is an ancient Greek term, and it translates directly to change your mind. And let me be completely blunt with you, this is not mystical woo-woo, this isn't positive thinking, and it's definitely not manifestation fluff. This is a hard, conscious shift in your cognitive polarity. It's the practical application of mental alchemy. It demands your conscious will to basically snap your attention away from that reactive pendulum swing of your ego and force your system to run a completely different set of instructions.
And the very first step of metanoia is dropping into state 0, the unrendered void. the no self. When you're out there being attacked by external forces, institutional rage, or just toxic social dynamics, you have to stop projecting your ego into the fight. State 0 is like dropping down to the bare metal of your hardware, completely beneath the user interface. It is formless awareness. In this equanimous, almost Taoist-like state, you are entirely protected from emotional projection. Why? Because you have removed the localized ego target. You literally give the world nothing to attack.
Think about state 1 for a second. State 1 is your manifested mask. It's your job title, your past narratives, your reactive ego. That is a highly visible, localized target, and institutional rage will easily latch onto it. But when you consciously collapse that rigid construct back into the unconditioned state 0, that formless source code, that 0 point, you de-render the target. The attacks, they just pass right through you like a ghost. There is simply no surface area for the friction to stick to anymore.
Section 3. Sovereign execution. So this brings us to the mathematical definition of the sovereign self. Capital S is greater than 3p. The equation officially flips. In this state, your capitalized, integrated self becomes the active master of your personal, private, and professional vectors. You are no longer the victim of your environment, right? You are the divine architect of it. You've integrated your conscious ego with your subconscious whole, achieving this incredible state of active readiness where you dictate exactly how your system processes the load.
To actually maintain this sovereignty, you have to adopt the correct physical and psychological architecture. Do not build a rigid, concrete dam. I see this all the time. It's that left brain illusion of static peace. A concrete dam fights the pressure head-on, and eventually, under enough stress, it will violently snap. Instead, you need to become a living wetland, rooted in that state 0 stillness. A wetland doesn't fight the kinetic energy of a flood. No, it absorbs it, it filters it, and it gracefully redirects those volatile forces. You're using the friction of the world to fuel your own dynamic balance.
Now, to keep your wetland functioning without becoming just another tyrannical controller yourself, you have to run what we call a recursive mediation loop. Basically, you split your internal awareness like a dual-core processor. You have the mediator, which is your state 1 ego, acting as the functional agent. It's out there navigating the world, transmuting conflict, and solving problems. But simultaneously, you maintain the separate observer, your state 0 awareness. This part is silently witnessing the action without any attachment. This dual processing maintains sovereign neutrality. It keeps you completely out of those binary us versus them ego battles and allows you to operate right at the edge of chaos with total resilience.
When you finally master this loop, you unlock the ultimate emergent formula. 1 + 1 = 3. By synthesizing your conscious, targeted action, that's the 1, with your unattached, formless 0-point grounding, the 0, you generate an entirely new reality. The 3 in this equation is the sovereign self. It proves that by standing firmly on the bridge between the unmanifested void and material reality, you become an active co-creator. You are literally translating the chaotic pressure of the universe into clear, purposeful manifestation.
So as we wrap this up, I really have to ask you directly, and I want you to be brutally honest with your own internal audit right now. Take a hard look at your life today. Are you being crushed by the load? Are you operating as a lowercase s, trapped and impressed by unmanaged inputs? Or are you finally ready to execute the Metanoia override, take control of the vectors, and actually use this very friction as the rotational energy needed to stabilize your life? Ultimately, the choice is entirely yours, but I promise you, the mechanics are non-negotiable. If you're ready to do the work and patch your system, remember our operational mantra. Check your inputs, document your vectors, and execute the override. If you want to dive deeper and inspect the full technical white paper on this exact framework, head over to journey.czwx.xyz. That's all for today's diagnostic. Until next time, stay limber, abide, and keep wandering.